what just gives me a thrill even to this day, hearing the sound of blades cutting through ice, feeling that crisp air on your face as you're cutting a lap. Even as silly as it sounds, the smell of a dressing room with the stale sweat. To me, it's a thing of beauty. I tell people love for hockey was just in my blood from the day I was born. I got that from my dad. My dad was always a leader in the home and in the community. In the home, he took charge. He made sure that the family was taken care of. And, really seeing in him, especially in my late teens and early adulthood, just seeing in him a real desire for holiness. But once I was finished high school, I was kind of to the point where I was thinking, well, I have to do something with my faith, or I have to let it go. It's going to be something important, or it's not. Then it was during that year, I think about February, where I was praying in front of the Blessed Sacrament, which was odd for me at that time. That wasn't something that I would do on a regular basis. I couldn't tell you why I was there on that day. But as I sat there before the Blessed Sacrament, it was like a draw on my heart, asking the question, what about being a priest? And my instant reaction to that feeling was, no way, I'm happy, God, why would you want to make me miserable? And so I told him, I said, if this is something that you want for me, or from me, then you're going to have to make it happen, because I'm happy, and I'm going to continue on my life on the track that I'm going right now. At that point, I was about 2.5 years into a relationship that I was very content with, but as my faith continued to develop, it created a greater and greater distance between me and her. What we valued, what was important to us, started to become further and further apart. I decided that that relationship should end. The ultimatum that I made with God came flooding back, and I quickly pushed it back under the rug. And it took a courageous priest to kind of bring it back to the surface. A priest named Father Mark Kramer introduced himself and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of being a priest?" And so I laughed in his face because I had, and I didn't want to think about it. But he just offered me, he said, well, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm at the Basilica, come and see me and we can chat. And so I was kind of entering into this new direction where I was taking things seriously enough that I was seeking a spiritual direction. And I was sitting reading a book that Father Mark had given me to read in the living room, and my parents were in the kitchen. I think it was my mom who said, what would it be like if our son actually became a priest?
Yeah, isn't it amazing how a God can take a broken man?
And they didn't really go any further than that, but that kind of stuck in my head. The point where I was able to go, okay, I can confidently say that I want to go, was the weekend that I went to a come and see. Fall of 2008, I entered St. Joseph Seminary, and after the first week, I was ready to pack up and go. I felt so out of place that my prayer life wasn't good enough to be at the seminary. I didn't have the right outlook. Everybody else seemed so much more confident in being called to the priesthood, and I was just a leaf in the wind. But luckily, Father Mark was there to just remind me that in your first year, you're not going to discern your call to the priesthood. You're just going to survive. It's such a shift in the way of life that you're just going to adapt. I stuck with it and made it through the year. But obviously a big one was my internship here. I wasn't completely comfortable with the idea of being ordained the following year, but I was comfortable with the call that I had received.
I am on the fence about nearly everything I've seen, and I have felt the fire get put out by too much gasoline. We're all strangers passing through a place in time. Afternoon, life is but a vision.
I could look at marriage in the face.
Helpless conversation with
I could see it more than just idyllically.
Confrontation about who might throw a punch or not. We are all transgressors.
And say, I love that. But God has shown me how to love priesthood more.
I am a difference maker. Oh, I am only one who speaks to him. And I am the friendliest of friends of God.
The experience of having hands laid on your head by all your now brother priests, really entering into this kind of new life, new way of being in the church. After my ordination, I had planned to do a hiking trip on the West Coast Trail, something that myself and Father Michael Schumacher had talked about doing for a long time. Not really know what we were getting ourselves into, because we had never done it before. Knowing that it was going to be challenging, had kind of prepared ourselves for it. It was 75 kilometers long and you never got bored of the scenery around you. Any journey that we allow God to lead us, whether it's priesthood or religious life or marriage, is scary. But the promise is a joy and a peace and a love that is much greater than any mediocrity that stands on the side of fear. In my experience, that's very true. Panic set in because it became that was a shift in my life. Stupid fly.
You can redo it. Don't fall over though. Don't try to smack it and fall over.